So this is the Postman, this is the database names, and then we can go our next files for the credentials to database connectivity credentials. They're very simple. So the credentials, so you see the secret, one kind of components from the Kubernetes secret type, and then the data information about the secret, the base64 encoding, the database username and password. I put it here is simply very username and password the same to make it very simple this case. So that means we need a config maps, we need a credentials, since it's config and the secrets, and then we need some additional files to how can we deploy the Postgres backend server. So it is the service definitions, it's basically the application levels, and that's I said I will discuss a little bit more detail about when I create these projects. Just like get how many files you need, which file you need. So we need a config files, we need a credential, the secret or credentials for the database connectivity, the username and password, and then here is the database name and the host names. And this is the how can you deploy the Postgres database instance into the containers, and also the related information for the persistent volume claims, and then so on so forth, and persistent volumes, and you can set it how can you read the config maps and also the secrets information from your configurations, from the credentials and on the config map configurations. So you see the secret key from here and the credentials, you see exactly the files that we are looking for, and the config maps that we are looking for the config maps, and you see the config maps from here, the config map, and then this is the file, the key names and the name of the name and the key names, and this is the default Postgres port numbers, and this is the amount of volumes mounted to the containers, and then storage name, and so on so forth. This is the really standard files for deploying any application into the Kubernetes cluster. So then next one is the final one to deploy the applications into our deploy the applications with the Spring Boot application with our backend containers, or the Kubernetes cluster, Kubernetes container, or Kubernetes with the with the Postgres database instances. So you see exactly this is the applications, and this is the definition of the node port target and protocols, and so on and so forth. And deployment, it is a service, and this is the deployments, and you name it like the application name, and then this is the most important. So we create the Docker image out of our Docker container file, our Docker file that's we define here. So you see exactly we copy this one, our jar files, and then build the Docker image, and then we connected the Docker image to load the Docker image from our local directory, from the Docker containers, and then load the image into the Kubernetes containers or Kubernetes cluster. So there's so on so forth. We'll discuss a little bit later more detail about how can you build. You need to think about everything into your mind, but how can you build applications, I will show you later when I start the developments. Just what today is just recapping what are you thinking, what can you start, and which file you need, how can you start the application, how can you do the installation for the Docker, and also the installation of the Minikube and the kubectl. So let's go back to the presentation that we already discussed, how the standard Docker environmental variable are supported, and then you have some information about the Minikube. You see, I already said the Minikube is to create one node cluster, Kubernetes cluster, and then kubectl command line tool communicate with the K8s clusters. So all the communications, all the settings, communication control, or information, you can use the kubectl to communicate your Kubernetes cluster. This really good tools is open source. You can just, when you install the Minikube, is automatically with include the kubectl command line interface with your I really applicate your CLI. So then what we need to do now, so what we did, just like if I go to the installation show, so we got the idea. So we have projects, and then we have projects. We have systematically and professionally structured these projects. That's, I said, I will discuss a little bit later more how can really professionally build applications, and then systematic way, and how can you build a database script, and then how can, this is the same file that I already talked about into the my working directory, that external deployment directory. So this is the external deployment. Just you simply copy those directory into the installation department. Simply run those files, the script files, the configuration files, including your version number. That's all. And then installation team installation. If you are working the simple small company, then you are responsible to deploy the application completely for your responsibility. That's why I show you that is how can you build the application into to deploy when you are starting the developments. Then just develop based on this your project structure to put it everything here and deploy and test your applications. When the testing is done, development testing is done, and then you can put it like this to build one of the jar files. Just simply copy this jar file and the job is done. And then after that, just copy your all the YAML file, the configuration file, into the respective directory, and put this directory into the installation departments, and they will simply run the applications out of this here, not your source code file. This is everything here. So after this is, I say, this is really professional and systematic way to deploy the application hundreds of machines in any part of the world. That's I mean. So that means we need, very beginning, we need some to build our jar files. So you see, I already ran with our jar files to build it. So we are in the, you see our project directory. We are in the project directory in here, exactly into the project directory. If I go the project directory like that, so in the IntelliJ, just you simply say copy, right button click, go to path, and then you see the copy path, and then you see the PowerShell, and then PowerShell, you just simply change the directory from the PowerShells. After the PowerShells, you can just simply Maven clean install and SDK install jar. So just click it, and it will create your standalone jar files. So it's, if you see the standalone jar files, so it has a main classes, there's standard Java class. You see the standard, the Spring Boot and the annotation application. Using the enable JPA auditing tools as simply main methods to execute the applications. Everything properly designed and systematic way. So that's, I said, I will discuss a little bit later more about these informations. So let's have a check. Is it our build is successful? So if you are build successful, you see the build is successful. We have new versions is here. So we can go to this the target directory, and just you simply copy the jar files into the if you run this application, you can run also from here. But for the external deployment, you just simply copy the jar files and then to the U directory, and after the you copying the jar files into the directory, and then you simply change your Docker files where the jar file is located. Just copy and then put in the copy and run the Docker file to build the image out of the jar files. So we need to go the working directory where is your file is located. Just simply here, so we can copy, and then we can go to our CD path. We are already here, so you see the CD path, CLL directory. So it's a directory. So you see all the files is located in the same root directory. So what we need to do to build the Docker image out of our 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 versions, the standalone jar files. So let's have a little bit cross check with